Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. The Board of Canada Blooms Horticultural Society is pleased to announce that the appointment of Terry Cotto to the position of General Manager of Canada Blooms. The combination of Canada Blooms and the Home Show makes it the largest home and garden show in North America. As manager of Canada Blooms, he'll be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the festival and has had a lot of experience with gardens and flowers and promotion, etc. He was for 3 years director of operations for the Royal Botanical Gardens in Hamilton. He instigated the Christmas Train Show, the Exhibit Battle of the Titan, and the RBG Garden and Home Show. As a Director of Marketing and Communications at Ontario Place as well, and he spent 7 years doing that. He developed the Rogers Chinese Lantern Festival and created the Canada Dry Festival of Fire. He has a business administration in marketing from Lakehead and a post-diploma degree in sports and events marketing from George Brown. So he's very well qualified, and Canada Blooms, of course, is going to be this year, March 13th to the 22nd, which is, of course, the March break, and that means family activity time, so it'll be a good time to go and take in the new gardens. Now, they are looking for and accepting applications even now for landscape designers and architects to build the Canada Blooms displays. So if you want to build one, contribute to one, then you want to contact them. Now you can go to the Canada Blooms website for the information, or you can contact Terry for more details. So go for it. You've got up until September 30th when they are going to announce the successful applicants. So go for it if you're one of those people who wish to do that. Now, the theme, which is probably something you would probably want to know if you're going to be doing that, is that it's all about play. And I kind of like this because I love the children's garden. I'm one of the big kids in the children's garden. I always have to go through the children's garden at Canada Blooms and play with the musical instruments, etc. It's always fun to be little again. And so with the whole focus of Canada Blooms for 2015 will be Let's Play. So, hey, let's play. And go to Canada Blooms March 13th to the 22nd at the Direct Energy Center. Again, it'll be co-located with the National Home Show to create North America's largest home and garden show. And it's, of course, on spring break. So for one ticket price, you're going to get the two events. So if you happen to be so orientated that you want to fix up your house, your garden, this is the show to take in. So go and play a little bit at Canada Blooms March 13th to 22nd, the Direct Energy Center, and the National Home Show, all in one event. That's pretty good. Now, there is a great book that everybody should probably own if you're interested in plant propagation. Many people will know who Dr. Michael A. Durr is. Every horticultural student, every horticultural school will have his books in their library, and probably many of them will own several copies of his various books. Well, Dr. Michael A. Durr and Dr. Charles W. Hauser Jr. have come together to put out a book, with the second edition being published in 2011. And it's called A Reference Manual of Woody Propagation from Seed to Tissue Culture. And that's significant in the fact that it's also doing seed, grafting, layering, you name the different ways a plant can be propagated, then this book is going to cover it. So if you don't understand what double dormancy is, embryo dormancy, hypocotyl dormancy, or any other technical terms, this is the book that will explain it all to you. It covers it all in a very easy to read, concise language, and that's important. It covers cutting propagation, the medias, the different types of media that or growing materials that you're going to put your cuttings into, seeds into, etc. But it also covers the containers, bottom heating, hormones, etc., etc., and of course, grafting, budding, and tissue culture, and all that you need. It also includes a partial list of vendors for supplies for grafting and budding, and other great books and reference books on propagation. Now, to give you a good idea on what is involved in some plant propagation, one of the most difficult plants to propagate is the Japanese tree peony. Now, they cover it in here as well. So there's simple things like pachysandra, if you want to do those. If you want to do sourwood, it's covered. Many other plants are actually covered, including European hop hornbeam and many others. So they're in here too. You want to propagate your euonymus tree, your bush, etc. of different kinds, it's all covered. So this is how to propagate your Japanese tree peony. And I love this and you're going to love this one. So you're probably going to play this several times and make notes because you are not going to absorb all this just in one sitting, okay? First of all, tree peony seed has double dormancy. That requires a warm stratification followed by cold stratification. The seeds are potted, given warm stratification at 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 months, and then allowed the hypocotyl or root axis to grow, and then a cold stratification of 41 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 months. To break that cotyledal dormancy, following the cold stratification, move to warm location, 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, for the epicotyl to grow. If you're going to graft them into herbaceous roots, that means you're taking a tree peony, which is woody, and you're actually going to graft it into the root of herbaceous peonies. You know, the ones that you grow all the time in your garden that come up each year from the ground, have these big fat roots. Well, this is what you're going to graft onto, okay? This is significant in the fact that it's not the easiest to do. So, the herbaceous hybrids that are best to use are ones that don't produce advantageous buds. Here's some examples. Cultivars like Early Windflower, Red Charm, Requiem, White Innocence. One of the old ones that everybody knows is Mons Jewel Elie, and probably the one I would recommend you use. Charles White and Crinkled White. These are the varieties. You'll take the roots and you're going to get them ready to do the grafting. The roots are dug a few weeks before the actual grafting time. They're allowed to dry until they're rubbery. At this stage, the root piece will not split from the scion, which is the piece you're going to put in. The roots are cut into 4-inch long sections, triangulated using the grafting method. 1-year-old scion wood is used, only 1 bud per scion. Leaves are reduced but left on the scion. That means the leaflets are cut, okay, or shortened down, and then the leaves will hang on. In other words, you're reducing the amount of leaf area that's being supported. After you've got them cut into the herbaceous root, the grafts are covered with a budding rubber and the tree wound dressing. Now, I shouldn't say tree wound dressing, okay? The grafts are plunged into a shaded cold frame with buds exposed and checked weekly. A fungal spray is used to prevent botrytis. By November, the grafts are knitted and the leaves are removed. Keep the frame closed and shaded until spring. Leave the grafts in the frame until the following fall, and then plant very deep to encourage the scion rooting, okay? In other words, you want the scion, the woody part, to root out. So you're using the herbaceous part to feed and support the woody part until it gets its own root system, okay? You can plant the grafts into outdoor beds that are prepared with generous amounts of peat and well-rotted manure so that they can get growing, okay? The scion should have at least 2 to 3 buds, and grafts are covered up to 2 inches of soil, followed by 2 inches of wood chips and a layer of black plastic to place over the chips. And in November, the black plastic is covered with 1 inch of straw. In early spring, the straw and the black plastic are removed, and you're ready to go. You've got them done. If you're doing the Peony lutea, which is the yellows, it's all the same except that the grafting operation will be a little later because they mature a little later. Division is possible also by taking and dividing the actual woody plant, but they have to be trimmed down very short, just above the ground in the fall, and the plant is dug, divided, and the plant in such a way that the buds are present on each and every part of the plant. Layering also works with this plant, but it will take several years for the stems that you've covered to actually root out. You can also go and air layer these using poly, okay? In other words, the clear poly and peat moss in the bag. And if you've never done air layering on tropical plants, it's basically the same. And so look that up and you'll understand. That's just the depth and the quality of the work in this book. If you were to do jack pine, I always loved the idea of doing jack pine because I think that it's an interesting plant, because one of the things that you have to have is exposed to heat. Very often jack pine is one of the few plants that actually, after a forest fire, can actually open up and seed itself into that area. The jack pine, the yellow-brown immature cones start to ripen in September, and that's when the seeds start. Now, the seeds require 2 to 4 hours of kindle drying. Don't you like this? In a kiln at 150 degrees Fahrenheit to open up the pine. It averages well over 100,000 seeds, but the seeds are cleaned and you'll get tons of them. The seed can be stored for up to 10 years, and you'll get 50% germination even then. Fresh or stored seed require no pretreatment or most 1 week of cold stratification. The germination capacity will be at least 70% take. That's pretty good. And you can also know this. Seedlings taken from prostrate forms, the lower branches, etc., okay, will also be predominantly prostrate. Therefore, you have to take the cones that are from the top of the tree, more vertical, to get the better quality jack pine. If you take some of the dwarf jack pines and some of the witch's broom varieties and the cones that actually develop on these, The seedlings will also bear the characteristics of the parent plant. And so you can propagate witch's brooms by seed instead of by cuttings. An interesting plant, but it's the depth of which this book is covers propagation. And both of those are some of the more difficult or more interesting plants. And there is 1,100 plants in this book, or varieties, or different plants that can be propagated, and they're all covered in one book. That's the Reference Manual of Woody Plant Propagation, 2nd edition, From Seed to Tissue Culture by Dr. Michael A. Durr and Charles W. Hauser, Jr. It's distributed by Timber Press, and it's even, for the amount of information in here, a reasonably priced book. Not cheap, that's for sure. Oh, and by the way, there's lots of pictures. They're all black and white. There is no color pictures. This is a serious textbook for people who are seriously into propagation, because it even covers all the different rooting hormones as well. So there you go. The Reference Manual of Woody Plant Propagation, 2nd edition, From Seed to Tissue Culture, Dr. Michael A. Durr and Charles W. Hauser, Jr. And I can strongly recommend that you pick up any book by Dr. Michael A. Durr, and you will find that it is a book of quality and for the serious gardener. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.